This conference will now be recorded.
So for the people who aren't here, we're talking about attendance and how I have to mark you off and say you slipped in your grade for some reason, absolutely like normal reason. Your grandma died, you had a brain lapse, a horrible problem with judgment, and ruined a homework assignment. I'm one, not going to be encouraged to help you if you're not coming to the actual class. And two, it's not an online class, like a purely online class. It's a class that you come to. So I remove any type of layer of positive reinforcement to your grade when you don't come to the physical class. Unless you tell me via email you're not going to be here or something besides just not coming. I used to have people who were sneaky and they'd show up, they'd get marked present, but now the technology keeps track of that for me. So at the end of the day, I've noticed on the recordings, it says these individuals showed up, they stayed for this period of time. So some of you leave halfway through. That's also sneaky in my opinion. But it is a class you come to. There's reasons for that. So that's my little diatribe on that really quick. I understand it. I mean, at least like have it running in the background. It's just silly to not, be making your ramen in your kitchen if you have to, but show up to the class and just let it run so you can be counted as present. All right, so let's talk about our session. I'm going to share my screen. And I have randomly picked a student to share. So this is Michelle's this week, and we're going to be talking about something very familiar to you if you were in Professor King's space planning, since I'm preparing you for drawing your kitchens. I will go over as I'm drawing the kitchens within the CAD program, how you draw a kitchen, why. So a lot of this is going to be the second time hearing it today. I mean, nothing bad about that type of reinforcement. You might be a little bit over it, but this way you'll be seeing me saying, and now I'm offsetting 24 inches, and now I'm offsetting another inch, and here I'm dashing this because you can see it. And so you'll hear me use similar terminology. If you hear something different than what Professor King said, totally stop me. I never want to be contradicting her, and we try to stay in good communication so that we agree on a lot of things. All right, so here is about what your drawing looks like, and then somewhere hanging off to the bottom left-ish area, we've got our site plan. If I go out to our session, and we're already into week 6, here I have assignment 6, drawing interior walls, kitchen and bath, planning detailed floor plans. So I also have a video agenda. This is just something that I've had in the past when I couldn't make the class, but sometimes it helps you keep track of what we did cover in our video just as a snapshot. So we'll be talking about drawing our walls in our plan, drawing in our kitchen, line specifics such as thinnesses and thicknesses, which we've briefly talked about as we were looking at our site plan. And then completely unrelated and something I just like to incorporate, tracing an image and using the dimensions from a site or photo in order to draw things, for instance, elevations, which is also something you'll be working on in this week, if not future weeks, for Professor King. So just looking at drawing our walls, really simple. If I go back out to the more detailed version, so I'm going to jump back out to week 6 and click on my assignment 6. It says, drawing in our walls. We have 5-inch thickness for non-plumbing walls and 8-inch thickness for plumbing walls. I'm going to edit this in real time because I just talked with Professor King, and I'm going to say for plumbing walls that are back to back. So that's clear, back to back. And then walls with fixtures on them. That's another way to think about our plumbing walls. And 1 bedroom with a master bath and closet. So clearly I could say, let's even be clear, master bedroom, 1 master bedroom. And this is just because not everyone is in space planning. So this is the minimum of what you have to draw for this class in order to get your homework correct. You have to have for me from Professor King's class, it should be one completed plan, however far you're in progress, plus your added kitchen and bath this week. So your plan will look different than a student who's only in my class, who's only going to have a master bedroom on their floor plan, a kitchen, and a guest bedroom. All right, I'm going to save this and continue to read our instructions. So one master bedroom with a master bath and closet. It must include doors, one guest room and closet. Closets are 24 inches depth. This does not include the thickness of the walls. It is open depth inside. Closet doors must be real doors with thicknesses. They may be rolling or folding. Bedroom doors need thicknesses and door swings shown. Now, there seems like a lot of extra verbiage. It's like, why, Professor Green, did you not tell us just draw for me one master bedroom with a master bath and closet and draw for me one guest room with a closet? All that extra stuff is just prompting for you about good drawing practices, things you might forget, or I like to kind of create this, even you could print it off and just highlight them at the end after you've finished drawing everything and highlight, yes, I have depth and I have doors on my closets. Yes, I have completed doors with door swings to my room. Just things so that you don't miss off points, because starting this week, remember, all mistakes are minus 5 points. And for me, that means not including a door swing is minus 5 points, and not having something on the right layer is minus 5 points. There's 100 possible points. It's more about checking for good drawing practices in general than saying it's 50 points to draw one complete bath. Well, how would I evaluate that? It's a really hard thing. It's just like art. Instead, I'm like, these are your drawing errors. They're all equal. So drawing the master bath in here, that's more specific, we want to have 21-inch cabinetry dash lines, 22 offset countertop solid lines, include a bathtub shower combination, and include a toilet, include sink or sinks. For drawing our kitchen, we've got a whole bunch of verbiage, which is going to talk about which solid, what is dash, and then I say you must include appliances to make up a work triangle, a sink, range, refrigerator. Draw the triangle in with dash lines, like the linked guidelines below. You may use symbols we brought in from a previous week. Download any new ones from other sites. So this is the time for those blocks that we had earlier in the semester in the recommended site to pull in some of those symbols if you haven't already. All the people in space planning, you might be secretly in the background right now looking for things that you want to pull in to your kitchen plans. For the people who aren't in space planning, you don't have to think much about it. You want a giant refrigerator, pull in a giant refrigerator. You want double sinks, whatever you've got is going to work as long as the cabinetry is drawn to specification that looks accurate. So let's just start with this first chunk in here. Drawing our walls is the most basic, 5 inches thickness. I'm going to show you, so this is a general student's plan with nothing drawn in it. I have this plan from a long time ago. You can tell there's a whole bunch going on in this file that I've worked on over the years. And this is about what it looks like, a good start to the homework for people who are only in my class and not in space planning. So we'll have some type of kitchen setup. It has a refrigerator and a sink right in here and a range. And then that triangle could be drawn by putting dash lines to each of these appliances. And then we would have some type of master bedroom space with a door swing. And then we would have our master bathroom, which has my bathtub and then a sink and then a vanity on this side with a toilet. And this is just totally random here. It's not meant to be good space planning for space planning class, because I'm not trying to give any secrets away about how to plan this space well. The kitchen's okay, but there's some sneaky stuff that I'm not taking into account. that you'd get dinged off of if you were in Professor King's class. So it's okay if some of your stuff matches mine, and as far as those people in space planning already had it drawn, and it's okay for the people in my class only to match this completely if you don't want to have to imagine up anything special for this plan. But it's just not wonderful space planning. For instance, this is my master bedroom and it doesn't have a closet, so I would need to add one of those on. But what you can see is it has a door with a door swing. It has a clearly well drafted walls in here that are, I'm gonna say, 5 inches thick. We're about to find out. These were 4, so old. So if I'm gonna start drawing something like this, I could simply left click my line tool and you're gonna be like, these are so basic. Yes, that's exactly what it is from here on out. Just refinishing our basics every day, practicing. And I'm going to come in here and start drawing some lines that I could offset 5 inches. So I'm going to offset 5 inches, enter, and I'm going to do it away from the column because the column is 24 inches deep, and I could kind of come around it on the other side to create thickness for my closet that I'm going to make up tonight. So I'm going to offset up and offset this up, and I'm just going to connect these with their nodes. And there, I've got a 5-inch wall on that side. So this might sound pretty basic, but it might not be for the people who aren't in space planning if you haven't encountered it already. I rewatched my video this semester and thank you. And so somebody asked me in the previous video if I'm drawing the walls of my room. So they were thinking, okay, yep, I drew the base wall, and then I'm drawing a wall up here, and then I'm going to offset again 5 inches. And then they were like, do I add a wall that's 5 inches off this exterior wall? So I'd want to draw a line in here coming across to give added thickness in here, although not pretty as I'm trying to kind of rush through it. No. So you never have to have a wall where there's already one of these exterior walls. We just leave it off, and these walls are connecting too. So this wall thickness is representative of a lot of things. If we were to really kind of like do a cut through of our wall and get inside of it, we might end up seeing that I have some type of brick on the outside, and then behind that brick, I have a 2x4, and then I have some period of insulation in here, and then I have another stud, and then I have some type of thickness of a facing material. But there's just so much that's going into the makeup of this entire thickness of the wall, and it includes whatever your interior finish is for this space. So when we go to draw the walls, we can simply come up and against them with keeping in mind what would happen when we have cavity moments like this created by the columns. So this could be like a really fun cutout thing where we have a column in here, and let's say if it was wood and then it comes and it meets with drywall, and then I had this and this was drywall, I could build something unique on the other side of this wall, like a shelf. So in this area, let's say this was like a sitting space. Oh, there's this nice shelf, and it makes sense that I have a door that's recessed and I'd come and enter in this space. Or if I don't want to have to build in all these fancy things, it's okay sometimes to create dead space that you finish off and then would finish with a hatch. So if I offset 5 inches, I'm just learning you in the world of architecture and drawing right now. And I say, okay, I'm going to build a normal wall that's going to come flush with this column. So you might see the change from column, or I could even tell them to specify plaster this to face of this as well. But then whatever the cavity is between this room and this, because I just wanted to fill this so it'd be a nice straight space in here, I would end up having to do some type of hatch work. And then within my document off to the side, eventually when we get into the architectural documents, say the hatching is representative of like a cavity space that's to be insulated, da 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 da. But that's how you would never just leave it. You know what I mean? You wouldn't just draw one wall or a line and leave it like this. It has to have a wall thickness of some type because it's not just dead completely. So I'd have a wall on each side, and then I would hatch in the space between them. All right, so I'm going to continue with my walls. Basically, I'm going to make my master bedroom much smaller tonight. Like I said, I'm not treating this as good space planning as much as I'm treating it as good learning about drawing cabinetry. So I could fill it. We're going to get to use numerous amounts of tools, knowing that if I had filleted one line, I would have lost one of those, but lucky me, I had two partial lines. And then always planning for actual doors, giving the doors a little bit of swing space. So I never start a door right here in the corner and then come off. You always have to give it a few inches because you imagine there's going to be some amount of trim and usually some amount of jam before even the trim. So 6 inches allows for like 3 inches of trim plus a couple of inches of space. And then I could say, okay, my door is going to swing in and it's 36 inches and it's 2 inches in thickness. It's not just a line. Those are things that you'll get clicked off for this week. And then I could say, I know my opening is 36 inches, so I'm doing an offset of this line. And I could choose my 3-point arc. 1, 2, 3. This is old school. This is way back when we were doing our initial blocks of doors. And maybe you have some that you copy and paste and move. And then I have to make sure that I trim out the cavity of space in between here. And when I trim that out, I'll need to draw my little finish to my door. So this is what a completed door looks like. It has a jamb, it has a thickness, it has a swing, an emptiness here that shows that I'm done and completed and have decided this is my final room space. All right, so if I'm coming into here then, I said, the space where I'm going to have my bed, nah, not so important. You get it. The only thing I really need to teach you is walls and a little bit about the rules of the wall. So I could end a wall here because this, unlike this, is drywall or plaster or whatever I want it to be. And then in here, I could either leave this and then modify this emptiness or draw a second wall and make the cavity meaningful. So I could start drawing cabinets in my bathroom, but really that's secondary and less familiar than drawing cabinets in my kitchen. So now that I've shown you how to draw some walls and we get that they're 5 inches thick, let's only have one more note about the double thickness. So if I said 5 thickness for not plumbing walls, and for plumbing walls that are back to back, 8-inch thickness. That just means if this was going to be a bathroom, just as I have it in my extra drawing, so here's a sink, for instance, and here's my wall behind my sink. And just so that's even clear, I'm going to hatch these really quick. Okay. I say really quick, but we all love the hatch tool as it tries to figure out its life. And we just hope that the wheel of death doesn't come for us as we wait for it to think hard. All right, so didn't like it. Basically, just in case so I don't lose it, I won't try to hatch it again. But here's my sink, here's my wall. What I'm saying is if you had this same setup on the other side, so I'm going to mirror it about here and copy it. Okay. And then we had it on this side. We couldn't just set it right up against that another 5-inch wall. There has to be more space to accommodate this much plumbing We had the plumbing coming off of this chase, so we've left a good connection point on this empty part where we're going to have the main of our pipes. It's going to connect into the wall, but there needs to be added thickness for the back-to-back plumbing of these tubs and these vanities. So I am going to have to move this wall thickness out 3 inches to make it an 8-inch thickness. And it would end up looking something like this. So wherever you might have a sink and a toilet that are sharing walls on opposite sides, we need to have added thickness for that shared plumbing wall. All right, going back to Michelle's plan, I have a nice empty kitchen area where I could start drawing some cabinetry. And I know that for my cabinets, they are 24 inches deep. So I'm going to start on this side of the window and actually just write in alignment with it. It's a nice clean marker of where I could draw some cabinets. Now, before I even started, maybe you're starting to wonder how you would lay things out and thinking about, like, this is a visual line for me. So if I was going to start a cabinet, I could say in the middle would be nice, from the far end, from the inside end. I wouldn't start it like randomly 4 inches into the window. I'm always thinking about how it would look in elevation as well. But is this a nice measurement from here to here? It's 16 foot 6. So that's a good measurement. But when we think about cabinetry, we also have to think we have, 30, 36, 24, 15. So will it be a nice clean measurement working my way from here to here with 16 foot 6? That's totally up to me and how I want to build my cabinets. But what I do know is this 24 inches depth. So if I start again from this nice clean edge of the window, say 24 inches up, and then I could start drawing my line over this way. And maybe I'll just start by having this and say, I want cabinets this full wall. And then I could say another way to go about it is to offset this whole wall on this side. So if I said offset 24 inches, that'll give me to the front of my cabinet, not including the edge of my countertop, which usually overhangs my cabinet by about an inch, give or take. So you might have a half-inch overhang, 3/4 inch overhang. I'm going to call it a nice even inch. That's most standard overhang. So 24 is the pure depth of the wooden edge of my countertops from both sides, and we've created kind of this space down here. All right, so I might say that I have a number of cabinets. Let's say one is 30 inches. So I could start from the outside and say offset 30 inches. It's pretty standard. And I'm going to offset one that's 36 inches. And continue to say what you want them to be. Now, what's going to determine them is their labeling. So right now they just like a bunch of rectangles and squares. If I want these to be drawer sets, I'll eventually have a bubble that sits on top of them with a numbering system. And that will allow me to know, is it one with drawers? Is it one with 2 doors and a drawer? But for now, I'm just thinking about the spacing of these items and their depth and the lines that make them up. So when I look at these, I would say that this outer edge is going to be solid, and then this front edge is going to be solid unless there's something going over it. And what I know is because of the kitchen being looked at from the ceilings point of view rather than when we're looking at our furniture plans point of view, anything that's sitting on top of those cabinets, like the countertop, is going to take on the solid line, and anything that's sitting underneath is in fact going to have a dash line because I wouldn't see it. So I'm going to draw a solid line offset from here that's going to represent my countertop so I can get my bearings. I'm going to offset it 1 inch. So 1 inch, enter. 1, and then it's up to you. Sometimes you could have a dead end over here where you don't continue your countertop that's overhanging it, only only overhangs it in the front, or it could overhang it on the side as well, and you get this nice rounded edge. So here we'll pull it off to the side. This also needs to have a 1-inch overhang of continuous countertop. So these, this one, and this one are all representing my countertop. And that's in reality what will be solid since I'm seeing it differently. So I need to do a few fillets. I'm going to fillet my corners here, fillet my center here, and it ends just fine at the wall down there. So this, and this stay solid. They're at a 25-inch marker away from the wall because it includes the depth of the cabinet and the inch that it comes over that cabinet. So that's 25 inches. From the side, I just did an offset so that I had an equal inch coming off of each of my sides of my cabinet, the front and the edge side. So that means I have to change these to be dashed, and that's done using their individual line types. There's two ways to go about this. You could draw everything and know that you're pretty good at keeping straight what's really countertop and what's really cabinetry. So I know this is all cabinetry so far. So I could select it, and at any time, as many lines as I want to, I can right-click them and drive their line type by their properties. So right-click, properties, and then if I go into their line type, I could say, this I want to be dashed 2. Dash 2 is better than we saw. Dash is a lot chunkier. Dash 2 reads as a little bit less visually big for the size of the cabinetry. So I'm going to do dashed 2 and just let it be dashed 2. Now what happens is you noticed when I had multiple lines selected and we were in their properties, it says certain things vary. So their heights in the X and Y, maybe their layers vary. Eventually we want these things on a correct layer. Now that's totally up to you. You could want it to be on just one layer, kitchen cabinets, or you could do it where you have kitchen cabinets and countertops on a separate layer and drive it like I'm doing by line types. So let's look at it how I'm doing it. Right now they're on random layers. If we created a layer, and I'll say kitchen countertop, or let's just say kitchen cabinets in general, since I'm trying to be really general. And then I'll add another layer later, kitchen countertops. Okay, just to show you a different way after this. So I'm going to come down to kitchen cabinets and make it the active layer. I can take everything I've done so far, and then after it's selected, come up to the layer menu and drop down and click on kitchen cabinets so that everything falls on that layer. Now notice kitchen cabinet is defaulted to gray because it was whatever layer was closest to it when I did that creation, it just pulls those attributes from. So I can change the color. I can change anything about it like we've done in the past through its layer properties, just clicking on color, line type, and so forth. But what you saw me do, so now they're all on the same line. If I click on this one, kitchen cabinets. If I click on this one, kitchen cabinets. Good. But notice if I click on this line and I right click properties, it says kitchen cabinets. The line type is by layer. If I click on the dash and I right click properties, it says kitchen cabinets, but the line type isn't driven by its layer. It's been automatically set by me, the master CAD person, to -2. So that's saying it's deviating from the standard of the kitchen cabinet. So I could go in and manually do all of this work and pick what I want to be dashed and pick what I want to be straight and have all these things turn off, but just have some of them manually dash and be on kitchen cabinets. Another way that I could have gone about it is to have a layer that's kitchen cabinets and then have my layer properties, a layer that's kitchen countertops that has a line type that's not continuous and is in fact dash 2. So if I go into its line type and then I change that to dash 2, if I make kitchen countertops my active layer, so I'll say, and let's make it a not ugly color. Let's make it just a normal gray for now. So it's 251-2. Mine was frozen. I'm unfreezing it. And then I'm going to double click it. It says, and we're going to turn it on. So mine needs to be light bulbed on. Now it's active, kitchen countertops. Dash 2, remember, has been set in its line type in here in the layer properties. If I go to draw the line, ooh, that's nice. It automatically knows that anything on that layer will be dashed. And that will prevent, I mean, if you're somebody who wants to be extremely organized and doesn't want to have to go back and automatically change things, you can do that. I'm more like in the moment like this. And as long as my cabinets turn off all at once, because I know that's all I need them to do for future plans, I just do it on one layer. But you can totally have a layer that's color and line type is driven by the layer itself, instead of going in and manually making some things dashed, but they all sit on the same layer. Does that make sense, the difference between those two approaches? Just one yes. Any questions? Maybe that's a better way to say it. All right. So if I'm sitting here and I'm saying, now I've got my cabinets underneath, I've got some of their solid lines that are representing the countertops that sit on top of them. What about upper cabinets in this situation? What kind of lines would I have for those? Well, so if the countertop is solid and it sits on top of the base cabinets, which are hidden, and the upper cabinets sit higher than the countertop, would they be dashed or solid? Who knows? You guys are just too much fun. I might go to just recording the videos and posting them. All right, so it's solid. So because of the cut plan, we wouldn't want to see our upper cabinets as being solid. So if you came out and we'd say they're 12 inches deep. So I'm going to do 12 inches, enter. And I could start going, uh-oh, I'm on that kitchen countertop layer. Got to go back to just plain kitchen cabinets if I don't want the dash line. So draw my line. 1 foot, enter, and I could draw all the way over. I have tons and tons of upper cabinets. So this would represent my upper cabinets. And technically you don't need the double line, because if you have two solids, we'll definitely read that this is representing something away from the wall. So I deleted my little extra baby line that's in there, and I've started to draw my upper cabinets. Now, I would not see these dashes of the base cabinets because I'm seeing the solidity of the upper cabinets. So I could go ahead and trim from here, enter, after I've placed anything below it, all of the dashing from the cabinets that are below. And then I could start figuring out my uppers, which might be in relative alignment with the lowers. So if I had a 30 and a 36, I could start doing a similar offset. So I could take from here and do a solid line. Say there's one above that matches with that, and a solid line here. There's some above that matches with that, and continue across. Now this might be one up here that has doors that open out. So, like they'd swing left and swing right, but it's still just one cabinet with two 15-inch face doors on it. You wouldn't separate them into little squares, for instance, just because there's two sides to them. It would be a continuous cabinet. But what really matters is upper cabinets are solid, lower cabinets are dashed, and this countertop is represented as a solid line as well. Two ways to control it: with all on kitchen cabinets, or by having a kitchen cabinets and a kitchen countertops, where kitchen countertops is dashed and kitchen cabinets is purely solid. Right, it's a lot to keep track of. So, but it's really not, because it's all pretty simple after that. The only things different than the bathroom then are the sizing. Here we had a 24-inch offset, and then including the inch, 25 inches to completion. But in our bathroom, vanities are a different depth. So they're usually 21 inches deep. And then if we add that extra inch, it's going to give us 22. So if I want to have a good layer, again, I could create a bathroom cabinets layer on which I do everything. Bathroom cabinets. And boop, I could come out. If it's still defaulted to this, I'd have to set bathroom cabinets as my main layer. Could start drawing. I'll just start from this lower wall in here. I'm going to come over 21 inches under and start drawing up. And I'm just going to complete it to here. I have no idea what size that is, but I just want you the idea of the depth. So when you measure, it should be 21 inches. Let's see. And I'll confirm it with an offset, 20 inches, or I could have started with an offset. Your choice. I think I did a little bit too much of a pull on my first one. And we'll fill it. Ooh, this is a good point, actually. You know what's the hard thing about the offsetting? Just remember, right, because I offsetted this line, it retains its properties. So it's on section walls or whatever I was on when I drew this layer. So we need to, after you do an offset, you'd want to make sure you do put it on bathroom cabinets, or in the end, make sure you're putting everything on the layer at once. As long as it gets on the layer, I don't care if you started on the layer or ended on it, make sure you're managing it as you go. So we've got that. And then we could say I have part of this cabinet that's 30 inches for my sink basin. So I'll offset 30 inches in from the side. Offset 30 inches. This little guy, I did something weird. I'm having like an off night. Offset 30 inches. There we go. All right, so here's this. This is where my little sink basin's going to go. And then I could have this just be open underneath. It could be like vanity where I'm sitting there, kind of like a desk to put my makeup on. It could have one drawer, so it might not even have cabinetry. This one, and for the whole thing, I'm going to need a countertop, which is going to give me an added inch thickness. So I'm going to offset an inch, 1 inch. And again, you could do it on the side or you could have it end on the face. That's totally up to you and how you want to finish your things. I'm filleting the corner. And so in here, I would have my 30-inch sink basin, and it's going under my countertop. So all these lines so far would need to be dashed. I could create a new layer that would be my bathroom countertops and then change its line properties. So this time let's do it that way, because that's the way I haven't done it. So I would say layer properties, bathroom countertop. And I'm going to show you how to, like that it's going to change hopefully things by changing it here and then selecting them and putting them on the layer, it should change them. So if we change this in here to be -2 and click OK, and then we make this the active layer, and we close out, and we select this, 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 and we haven't messed with its layer, and we haven't done the right-click properties stuff, and we just go and we put it on bathroom countertops, it should change all of those lines to be dashed because we put them on that layer and we haven't changed their properties individually. So that's another way to do it. So that's what I can't see. And then this is representative of the countertop. And then if this was a base cabinet and then the countertop continued to the wall, I'd probably, and I said I want this open space for my legs, I probably would have some type of like hidden leg underneath there. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but like a leg support underneath, because if you looked at it in elevation. So I wouldn't have that be visible because I'd only see it underneath the countertop. And in the bathroom, you might have like a medicine cabinet, which wouldn't be a 12-inch offset. It would be something more like a 4-inch offset. So if I came up 4 inches and clicked and then started to draw over, I would say this one has to go back on my bathroom cabinets because it's solid. Oh, I know. This is good to see. So if you ever lock a layer, see how this is locked? You got to unlock it. It didn't want me to move it because it was locked. It's as simple as unlocking the lock. So now I could have that big vanity cabinet that's running my entire length, which is kind of silly, but it would be solid. And if it is running the whole length, I would not see this portion of the cabinets that's underneath it. It would get chopped off or I would move the node. All right.
Allison, I
So,
have a quick question with that.
yeah.
So like for space plan, I already put in a couple like kitchen blocks for like my sink.
Mm-hmm.
So for the upper cabinets for that solid line, would I need to erase part of that like sink block? Not a block that I built out?
Yeah. So if we go back into, I think my saved final two, you
Mhm.
can see how it would look. So see, you can see my sink,
Yes. Okay.
but here I have a floating cabinet that's attached to the ceiling and it'll cut off where you'd see the handles. It would cut off anything below it
Mhm.
that you wouldn't see because of the edge of those cabinets.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
All right. So coming back in here, that completes all of the rules for the bathroom cabinets. Pretty simple. I mean, we might end early tonight because I'm making this way simple than usual. So kitchen, bathroom, 24-inch to standard size of cabinet, 25 including countertop, uppers solid, lowers dash, countertop solid. Bathroom, same thing, different depth, 21 inches for our cabinets, 22 to their finished with the countertop, that solid countertop line. And then of course the rules of cutting things off that you don't want to see. I'd in fact want to cut off this little foot too so that I wouldn't see him as much because he'd be underneath all of this. Make sure you're making sure when you're drawing your walls that you're putting your doors cut out fully with their swings and their thicknesses. And then closets, I said, you could have pocket doors, you could have folding doors, but if you have doors, you draw them correctly. So I don't know how many doors you guys have drawn. And some people who are in this class, they're not in space planning to see all the really fancy stuff that goes on in there. So if I had another opening, this is the messiest way. Look at how funny this is. There'll be one giant wall and then one little wall. And then in between this gap, a strange gap, I had doors. I could take some folding doors and this is my folding door. I'm going to mirror this. And that could be one set of folding doors that I move into position and they hinge at their center. Now, the rule about folding doors is, let's say if I have two, if I actually unfolded these, they should measure the distance of this gap. So if I was going to draw them in reality, I would have wanted to measure this strange gap, 2'9" and 13/16. And then I would want to take that measurement and divide it by 2 and create two rectangles that are those half measurements and hinge them. So that would be something to be very precise about, because sometimes I'll get people who give me a gap like this and they just really quickly, like, draw a door and then a second door. And then it becomes this unbelievable thing that's also kind of jutting into their space. And make sure they're rectangles, make sure they're not like this mess that I've got going for myself. Clean drawing habits will go a long way and will be checked for in both classes. So if you're spanning a gap, just as we draw this length to be the actual clear space of this, so we want this unfolded length of these two things pushed flat to be the clear space of this gap. A pocket door is represented, you might have a cavity on one side. So if I went over here and I offset 2 inches, totally arbitrary by the way, and I'm just creating myself a cavity for my door to come into. And then I would have the actual pocket door that could go into that cavity. And I'll move it into place. So you could see how you'd be using the door. Our CAD should tell us something. That means that secretly I've got to remove this ugly line here. And then the people get the idea of, oh, this thing could slide in here, or it could slide out and be the size of the clear opening. So you'd have your opening meet up with it on the other side over here. Okay, so whatever kinds of doors you want to use, just make them believable. And if you have a question about how to draw something, you can always ask as well. Closets, that was another thing I wanted to talk about drawing in CAD. So they're 24 inches depth. That 24 inches depth is of clear space, not including wall thickness. So for instance, if I have my little guy here and he's 24 inches, that means that I can't go, oh, the closet's going to be here. And then I draw this over and up, and then I offset 5 inches here. I see what I'm doing, 5 inches. It's not catching my space bar. It keeps thinking I'm doing feet. It's my keyboard. So I say, okay, there's my closet. No, the measurement of this empty space inside the walls has to be 24, the full 24 depth. So this is going to have to move down here, and then the walls could be built. The gap itself is 24 inches. Now, that's if here, if I clean this up, I gain some space because of the thickness plus the column's depth. So you're going to have a lot of weird things in this house like that. So if I gain my 5 inches plus 24, then in that case, I get to come at least in 5 inches on this side because of the 5 inches I gained right here. So I could fill it all off and make it all clean. Clean it up a bit and show you what the appropriate end would be. So if I say trim from here to here, enter, and we're going to trim out this first line and trim this one out. Okay, now I'm going to just draw one from here as a guide. Offset 24 inches, just working quickly. It is my keyboard. Inch key sticks. And move this up to be the real 5 inch. So I do this. And so now you see this is 5, and this is 24. So from here to here is 24. It included the thickness of the wall, which is fine because the depth of the actual space is 24. And that allows me to have this really nice clean alignment with my column. And then I could finish up my wall on the right side, offset 5 inches. All right, so there I'd have a closet. Now I would have to have some type of doors on my closet. So a line does not suffice. And in my situation, I'm in trouble because I'm real close to this bathroom door. But if I wasn't really close to the bathroom door, and this is the magic of CAD, yay, totally fine, then I could have doors that swing out. Still, I'm too close to this if I want them to swing out. Or I could have those folding doors. So if I did a measurement from here to the other side, I'd say it's 5'2.5". So half of that is going to be, so half of 5 is 2.5. So 2'6", 2'7.25", I think. That's me doing math in my head. Good luck to us all. 2.7, 2'7.25. 2'7". See, 7.25 inches. Okay, and if I put that down here to the middle, and I could have even just drawn a line, right? I could have drawn a line across, found the measurement, split it in half. So that could be half, and I could have 2 doors that swing out using that measurement, or I could take this and split it in half again. So if I draw a line here, and I take it and I give it thickness, so let's offset 2 inches, enter. And then I'm going to trim from here, just so I get 1. That's that measurement. I know you're kind of like, tonight I'm a strange, evil genius. That doesn't make any sense, but it doesn't really matter as long as you see the end product and you get that I did half of this opening, and now I'm taking half of that and making a cute rectangle. That's all you need to know. You could make it however you want to make it. I'm just doing it my fast, odd way. And then I could rotate it 45 degrees, and I could mirror it, and actually let's mirror it the other way, so then it's ready to just push into place. Mirror, enter, and I move it. And that would be the clear space. And then I could copy this all over to the other side. Copy, and there you have it. I'd have those cute little doors that when unfolded would close and everything would work out. So that's what a folding closet door would look like for our closet. And then I said, you know, I want you also be thinking about shelves. So it's usually about a 12-inch shelf. A shelf is going to be shown as a solid line, but a rod beneath the shelf would be shown as a dashed line. And I've seen it represented in some of your plans as just if I did this and then we said, not find, but right-click properties. And in here's in the line type, we can change it to be dashed. So we could again do -2. I've seen some of you represent it just as that. I like to give thickness to things so people never question what they are. Like if it's an inch thick rod, then I could offset it 1 inch, enter. And if you do an offset, it'll maintain its properties. And then I say, oh yeah, there's a inch or a 1 foot shelf with a rod at its center that you can't see that's hanging beneath, and it has its doors, and that's a finished closet to me that I would accept as a fully drafted closet. All right, you could have doors that are sliding on a track, so on and so forth. Okay, let's take a look back at our homework. So we drew in our walls for our plan, and we drew a master bath. We started it anyway. We talked about 21, 22. We talked about all of the different types of lines and depths for drawing in our kitchen. And I've included for people in this class who aren't in space planning, just a quick planning guidelines with access standards link that does really basic stuff. So it talks about recommended clear opening of a doorway into a bathroom, just so they have the opportunity to follow the guidelines as well, since Cheryl will be looking for them and I'll be double checking them for the other people. I would love to check it if you just want to practice that. I used to teach kitchen and bath. I taught it twice, and then I've also done independent study in it. So you could talk to either me or Cheryl. She's probably more up to speed because I haven't taught it in many years. But this is for everyone to use and just look back at. Here's that dashing of the work triangle. So a work triangle traffic. So between our range, our sink, and our refrigerator, there's certain types of distances that are acceptable. And we want to draw our triangle in. So it's from center of sink to center of range, center of refrigerator. If I go back to my saved final two, and I would be totally fine with you putting it on that layer where it was kitchen cabinets. Just ignore my furniture because this one, this specific drawing is pretty willy-nilly as far as its layers goes. But if you have a dash layer and we say, I'm going to start at the center of my sink, to the center of my range, to the center of my refrigerator, and then for my people, you can see it is dash, it's just very light. My people who are in space planning, they have certain measurements that they need to check and verify that the legs of those triangle aren't too long, aren't too short, aren't impeded by center islands, so on and so forth. But that's how the drawing's accomplished. It'll simply be a dash triangle that falls in the middle of the plan from the center of those appliances and fixtures. All right, back out here. So the next thing that I'm going to show you is tracing an image and using the dimensions from a site to scale and draw. So this is really seemingly random, but it's very handy. You still don't know why you should trust me. I never did my, this is me and here's what I did, but I worked 4 years in the contract industry in one of the 2 local companies that are available to us in this area, this being Mishawaka, Granger, Elkhart. There's only 2 large companies where you wouldn't have to go to Chicago to work. And I was in charge of healthcare and education, offices, tons of stuff. I did all sorts of things, and someday I'll show you a PowerPoint where I've done everything from design a custom $100,000 chandelier where I used SketchUp and worked with a designer out of New York, and we talked about rise over run with the stairs, and I showed her my designs and we'd say, how plausible is that? And then we picked colors and materials. So like product design, I've also designed rugs locally with other companies, and then I've done offices. I've done nursing homes and so on and so forth. And I used CAD all day, 8 to 5, and really hours in a week. It was well over 40, so it ended up being like 60 something hours that I'd be using CAD and SketchUp. And this that I'm going to show you is just like a really simple tool for drawing complex furniture items, maybe even like if you've seen those decorative walls where they have lots of tracery to them, you could get a photo and scale it inside CAD and draw on top of it to save yourself time of trying to figure out how to draw it manually. So I have right now Arcadia Contract pulled up. It was just a company that I used to work with, and I found that for this exercise for your homework, they're very easy to use. So it's arcadiacontract.com. And I have it pre-opened to this seating, guest seating, Cielo guest. And I've clicked on its specifications, which each of these, if you go into guest seating, and then we went to Solero, and then we go over to specifications, you'll get the width, the depth, the height, the arm height, da, 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 da. So for your homework, what I'm asking you to do is find a furniture image on this site. It has to be in good elevation. So for instance, I wouldn't use this picture to draw this because it's not an elevation view. This is a 3/4 turn isometric, but this is a nice elevation. Or if I had a really good front on view, I could use that as well, or the other side. But if I have a side view or a front view, and then maybe in your life after you figure out what I'm doing, sure, you could try something like this. You can save the image. So I'm going to save it to my desktop. I already have. Click Save. And then you can go into your AutoCAD and you can simply drag the image from your desktop or wherever it's at, it could be from a folder as well, into your CAD. Now, before I go to drag it, I want to know a little bit about the specifications of that chair and how I eventually want it to be. So we have to think about what I'm seeing in this elevation. In this elevation, I can see the height, right? And I'm going to use my snipping tool right now because it'll help you understand. So here's the height. And you're like, duh, lady. From here to here is the height. Now, because it's sideways, from here to here is the depth, not my width. Okay, if it was front facing and it was from here to here, it'd be a width, but this is my depth. And that's right over here. And it says 24.5 inches deep. And there's a number of options to this chair, but the majority of them are 24.5 inches deep. The bariatric is different, and that's a wider version of this chair, so it doesn't concern me. So I'm going to give myself a base measurement in my CAD. And I believe, just so you are on the same page as me, it says this should be drawn on a new layer called image layer. So in CAD, if I go back in, then I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to call it image layer. And I'm going to make it red just because I want to be able to see it really clearly. And then I'll make it active and close out. So now that I have it all ready to go, I can draw my line, and we said 24.5, 24.5, enter. It's not that big. And then I'm going to now draw or drag in my image of my chair. So where I see it right here on my desktop. And I'm just going to drag it in here. And I'm going to click on that piece and kind of, we'll see how it drops it in. Oh, it was going to do it. That's awesome. So it was a little bit different than earlier. So like if I just drag this nowhere and I place it and I click randomly, it's just letting me place it. Let's even do it that way so you can see what happened. If I dragged it and I didn't drop it nice and close up here. Then if I click on its outside boundary, it's going to pop up this menu. And it says you could create a clipping boundary. So if I create a clipping boundary, I'm going to zoom in and I want to clip it so that I'm basically getting its overall width. So that's like inclusive of right here to as close to the edge of the chair as I can get. That's what I'm calling that. So when I move this, I can really see how wide it's going to be. Then I'm going to move it into place up here. And this is my 24.5 line, remember. So I just gave myself that as a base measuring line. So if I measure from here to here, it's 24.5, 2.5 feet. So then if I select this again, but I go to the Home tab and I go to Scale, I can start to scale it up. And I'm going to just scale it up. You see how I like stopped? I was looking to the right and I was so close to hitting the scale of that line. You want to be as close to that line as possible, but I'm going to show you something about what just happened. So I'm scaling this chair up about the width measurement, which is my I'm measuring against my nice elevation. It's as much an elevation as it's going to be for what it's doing. So if this is 24.5, let's go back out to our website. And it says the height should be 33 3/4. So that's to the top of this here, because otherwise it'd say arm height. So 33 3/4. So if I drew a line from here to about, we'll say here-ish, and it's going to want to snap to the top of here. I'm going to make my screen bigger and turn off my O snap so you can see that I'm doing that. So I had to turn my O snap off because it wanted me to snap to the top here. So I'm going to start basically at the bottom here and come up right to about here. And so now I've got this line here. And I say, what does that measure? So I'm going to turn my snaps back on so I can snap on my line. My line here to up here. And it says it's 2'8". So that's 132, 32, almost 33 inches. So do you see what I did there? Do you see how I picked its width? And I took the image and I measured it or scaled it to be similar width. And since everything in here is drawn 1-to-1, it took that image and at a 1-to-1 scale makes it so now if I trace this chair, I'm drawing its elevation appropriately to its scale, and I could use it in any elevation drawing for my house, for instance, and know that it's at the right scale. It's a super weird and seemingly simple thing that's very, very helpful to understand if you're not bringing in a block. So if you brought in a really cute block, it might not be the exact chair that you want, but this is a good way if you have a company that has multiple views of a chair or sofa to go about using it to draw the reality of the object. So now that I've got this in here and I've scaled it close enough to be perfect, I would have hit on this outside line and there's just no way. All I did there was make my box a little bit bigger. So you saw what that did was it dragged the like white space, see? So that didn't make the chair bigger. The scale tool, which is under here, and if I say scale, going like this, I can make it way big. Or I could grab it and go home and then scale it and make it way little, but you're going to see that's super frustrating. So if you make it way big, you're like, yay, made it way big. Now our line is way down over here somewhere, and it's hard to find. So now to scale it down, I have to type decimal percentages going backwards. So I could say I want this 0.75 smaller. And I could keep doing that until I get to the size of my 2.5 as close as I could, but it's really easier to bring that picture in smaller than your 24-inch measurement. So if I move this, you can see how small this line is right here. And if I move that back into place, what I'm saying is I could keep going down, down, down. So then I could go home and I could say scale and click about the point and say, nope, 0.80 smaller and keep getting smaller and smaller. And you're just guessing. That's the thing. That's the weirdest thing about this. You'd be guessing to get it smaller and smaller until it hit back up to this line. There's no science behind it besides scaling it until you match with the edge of your original 24-inch measurement. But, okay, when I had it so close, this was close enough. So for your homework, I said, yeah, if I measure it as your teacher and you've included for me, it says you have to tell me where you've found it. So drawn on a new layer, you must scale the furniture, let's say, within 2 inches. So I was within 2 inches of being correct there with the chair, and that's not hard to do. Include the site to scale and draw, and then include the link to your chair or furniture, to your furniture. So That way I can go there and check which piece of furniture you grabbed from the site. So if we go back to Arcadia, you cannot do the chair that I just did, okay? I want you to try and find your own image just to get used to one, site navigation and using the idea of this. So if you go back to guest seating even, you could pick like the Neos if you wanted to and see if it has a good enough picture. This is pretty close to elevation. This would be like a very complicated chair, even though you could probably find it. You could use this. So actually, this wouldn't be too complicated. If you brought it in and used that clipping tool and clipped it from the foot to the top of the chair, you could give me a front elevation of a chair. And in that case, you'd go to its specification and you'd say, we want to have the mid back, see how it's the shorter one, and we want its width, which would be 33. Then we do a 33 baseline and bring this object in. And once you get it in, then your job is to trace it. So on your image layer, you're going to turn it into a CAD object. That's this tall. And you can use arcs and whatever you've got to use. So you're like, and you're just going to slow go, trace your object until you have a CAD drawing that you can copy off to the side for me and include the link. Now, how are you going to include the link? You're just going to include it as text. So see how I'm doing this? So in the end, you're going to have a finalized thing, and you're going to have an image that if I move it, I'll be able to see the fully outlined chair. So I'd have all the outline of the paneling and all the little detailings outlined. And then you're also going to include where you found it. So right under here, you could say, this is my link to whatever this was. Copy it, and it should take me to the specification portion of the site. So I Control C, Control V, and this is what I will see somewhere in your drawing. The original image, the tracing, this, and I'll be able to measure it about those specifications and see that you understand how to scale an object. What we really use this for more than elevations is when a client comes to us with plans from the 1800s, which has happened to me, and says, these are done by hand. They were never done by CAD, and I need them to scale a printed copy of them. Can you do that? And I take them and I scanned them in with the printer. I took that JPEG and then I traced over all the line work and made it into a scalable CAD plan. So it does happen. This isn't an arbitrary thing that I'm having you try. It's really important. And it can become useful later when you're doing elevations for this class. All right, so this is the last step after drawing your kitchens and baths. For people like Michelle, who's not in space planning, she's only drawing for me a finished master bedroom with a master bathroom, and then a guest room that doesn't even have to have a bathroom. So that'd be another room with a bed and a closet, and then a kitchen. And that's it. For the rest of you, I'm just accepting your work for Professor King's class as complete for my class with this. You really shouldn't have separate files for our classes. Like in the end, what you turn into her for your final project, this sheet set for my class is going to be part of your final. So you're going to I'm okay with you giving me a big messy file for Professor King's class that has 7 floor plans in it. And simply when you're turning it in that same file for me, just putting a box around the thing that you want to be submitted for my class with the inclusion of anything extra in that box. So you don't have to jump back and forth between the two classes. You should have one working file that you're updating the date every week pretty much. And if you have separate files, then start making sure that we have one, because you're going to need to, as we progress on, just have one spot that you're working and turning stuff in. It'll make more sense when we start to have to create layouts for printing and organizing everything you're creating for her. Do I have any questions?
I have a very specific one from my space planning plan.
Can I look at your screen?
Um,
Or do I need to?
I'm on my iPad and I do AutoCAD on my other screen.
Okay, if you think I can answer it without it.
Okay. I'm kind of doing my master bath and my guest bath are extremely large so that they incorporate the closets in them and they're
Yeah.
kind of walk through closets.
hmm
So I wasn't planning on doing doors over like the hang bars and shelving. Um, I've allowed enough room though. Do you want me to add the doors for this assignment?
Nope, you do not need to add the doors.
Okay.
And that will make more sense. If it's purposeful, then that's
Okay.
fine. And I should be able to intuit that by the plan that you've had. I know Nor had some things like that where they were just open face closets that were
Yeah.
walk-in. So
Awesome.
if it makes sense, but if it was 24-inch deep and there was a rod and no doors, I'd be questioning.
Okay. Yeah, you're like, rethink.
Okay.
Thank
Um,
you.
yep, no problem. So yeah, just whatever you're gonna turn her into her, turn it into me. And have any new layers because you should be, being clean about how you're working for her, for me too. So like, I get that. You wouldn't put every plan like that's what the box is for. It's like this one, everything's on the right layers. Sure, I did 5 renditions of the floor plan over here and they were on whatever, and no one cared because they were quick. But just the final one for us, if you had 5 copies of bathrooms, that's fine. I'm not going to check your individual bathrooms and stuff, but I need one plan that has kind of a finalized setup to it that's coming to me in the end. So if you guys have, is she just making you do little vignettes to the side, or would they be in your plan? Does that make sense, Amanda? Like, I know for the last couple of weeks it's been prototypicals, or is
Mhm.
it now you're putting them into the actual plan? Do you
I
have two
think we're
sets?
aligned now where it's in our plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I hope it all makes sense. The other thing is, eventually, it might be one thing that I do check with Professor King. I'm just thinking about this week. Eventually, we have to have these walls hatched. So what a hatched plan looks like for the end of this, Lord help us all, because it's going to be red, but it would be, we would have this hatched and this would be hatched, not this because there's no hole. And so I want to say I'm okay with you guys not fully hatching, since you're not locking in, and hatching on the computer is just such work. Um, but just know that in the end, I've seen a lot of people forget to hatch. And so their walls were unhatched and super ugly. So like they left these things. I would just do the due diligence to clean those things up this week at least, if you're not going to hatch, so that it's a nice clean juncture here and we can tell the walls are connecting and they make one room. Whereas maybe it'd be fine to leave this off in here because the column connects to the wall. So this could be a closed line. Eventually when it's hatched, you're not going to notice it anyway. It's all going to connect together. But we will hatch it in the end. So be thinking about any extra little lines hanging out. Yeah. Do you hatch the doors as well? You don't have to hatch the doors, no. Mm-mm. And when you get into like the real specifics of drafting, like the column, I mean, not for this class, we're pretty lenient, although I'm a little bit more detail oriented than some professors might be at this level. But like your column, if it was wood, then we do the hatch sign for wood, and then for solid, for plaster, it'd be plaster. But we're just doing solid equals finished wall. And so anything finished is solid. So the door can stay hollow. It's a hollow core door. That's what that's my reasoning behind leaving it empty. But I think we're all good. Um, oh, one other thing. So I'm going to post a file that doesn't exist yet. This is everything. So we came down to tracing the image. This is the last step of your homework, and you have to do it or you lose 5 points if you don't do it, because I have so many people that put it off. And if it's okay with you to lose 5 points, hey, that's on you. But you want to download SketchUp this week because I want to start using it. I've gotten to a point where we usually get to use it the week before break, and it's so much fun to play with for the break if you have it, or to even open if we don't even get to it and kind of pretend to play with it by yourself and look at it, or even I could give you a file to look at. But download SketchUp. It costs around $50. Mention it in the email that went out at the beginning of the semester. You need it by next week. I want to make sure like that's imperative because I want you to encounter the trying to get it process. We always have at least 1 to 2 people who have a problem with it, not because of SketchUp, but because of them freaking out before really going through all the steps, or using an email that it doesn't get sent to and finding out it went to their spam, and then they don't have it for 2 weeks. So if we're going to experience that, I'd rather do it early, get all the bugs worked out, and be ready to go and not panic in the future. Here's the link that I give you. This is like a real nice thing of me to do because it saves a bunch of steps. So I'm saying go here, click. We want our 2018 SketchUp license, and it's the $49 student version for a year. Just add it to your cart. It'll walk through the steps. Kimmy, who's the SI for space planning, she has done this process. And at some point, she says it's like it lets you pay for it, and then you get your confirmation email. And then the confirmation email says, we would like you to have proof that you're a student. It's totally legitimate. Okay, I'm sending you this link. They're going to ask you that. And they just want you to send like a tuition statement is what she sent them, like a photo with your phone or a screenshot of, or if you have a copy of it digitally, and there's other student documents that prove that you're a student, but it's going to just say student verification, something that has your name, your student ID, and so forth on it. A tuition one statement I know for sure will go through. Send it their way, and then they'll send you the final steps for it. So
Can
it's,
we just send in like a photo of our student ID?
I don't know. You can try it, and if it failed, it's not like they're gonna undownload it. You know what I mean? Like they would just say send something else.
Okay.
I just know for sure the student tuition, like the bank statement goes through or whatever, not bank statement, it's like tuition statement. But there could be something like a student schedule, I think someone has sent in the past. So I'd assume your student ID would work in reality. I don't know that it has to be as formal.
All right.
So please give it a try this week, because I think that gives us a week to 2 weeks before we actually have to have it. And then tracing this, just to one more file that I'm going to put in here probably by tomorrow, and you won't need it for a minute, is when we're dealing with dimensioning kitchens and baths, the dimension style is different. And so I have, again, really benevolently, I'm just going to include one that I need to have you copy into your file. So it's on you to make the copy of it, but I have created a kitchen and bath dimensioning style that will work. It's in inches, and it's a little more finicky than the one that we have already created for us in the template that I gave you. So if I go into here, how you're going to get it is you are going to open this file, or a file that I have. And when I send you the file, it's going to look like this. It's just going to be one dimension string hanging out just like this, so that you know you have the right file. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the dimension string, you're going to select it, you're going to go to copy, and you're going to go to your drawing, and you're going to go to paste, and you're just going to boop, put it right there. And all that did was tell your file that you now have this dimension format. And you could even delete this out, and I think you'll still have it. So now that I've done that copy, if I go under annotation and I drop this down to look at what I have, I've got interior design, and here's this one that I need. I'll have NKBA dimension style. And the one that I want to have is actually going to be called, because I renamed it. So that's how you'll do the copy. The one that I send you is going to be called NKBA standard. And you'll know it and you'll be able to use it. So in here, where I have it already set up, it'll be NKBA standard. And then when you make it active, you just come in here, and so here's a bunch of NKBA styles, but the one that I really like, I fixed it this year a little bit, NKBA standard, it's active there. Then when I go to dimension, I can click on an object, and there's my dimension style. So another thing about NKBA dimensions standard, I want to get to a smaller object so you can really see how it'll work. If I'm going to dimension, I could go from here to here. For the NKBA, when we have dimensions, and I'm just going to show you to prove you that it's true, NKBA dimensions. And we use images. This is a fine one. See how when they're on the left and the right, they should be running vertically? And so the style I'm giving you is totally fine to do this stuff, but when it needs to go vertically like this or in your elevations, here's an elevation. See, we should be good for the elevations, but if you ever want to dimension a plan, see how they have, we're gonna get really close in here. Here's their inches. So if you ever need to go vertically with it, it's another step. So you have your dimensions, you click on linear instead of the standard dimension line. And I would go linear, and then I'd go like this, and then I'd type A, enter, and then I'm gonna say 90, enter, and that turned the text rotation to be 90 degrees up, so it could go up the side. Otherwise, it looked like even our elevations, the style that I'm giving you, you should be fine to just do it this way and have the text going that way as long as it's in inches instead of feet in inches, which is different for kitchens and baths than it is for overall floor plans and details. So I will give you that. Again, all you're going to do is receive a file that has one dimension. You select it, you copy it, and you go into your drawing and you paste it, and then you'll find underneath here, it'll say NKBA-standard, and you'll make it active and you'll start dimensioning, and it'll all work out. So that's just another little thing that I'm giving you to use as you prepare for Professor King's class. All right. Without any questions, then that's really all that I've got for you. Have a good night, and if I'll wait just a few more minutes, so you may leave if you need to. Lillian, you got anything? I know the other two aren't here to stay. So if I don't hear back from you.
Hello?
Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and sign off.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, bye.